rise to becoming the lusty entire West Africa.
The world is now a global village, so is transporting your goods across the world made easy by Bethel Logistics Company Limited. Bethel Logistics is a licensed freight forwarding and clearing agent focusing exclusively on our respect for your freight forwarding responsibilities everywhere in the world as a business, government institutions, non-governmental organizations, and individuals. Call on us. We are experts in freight forwarding, air, sea, and road, custom clearing and forwarding, cold chain logistics management, and anything freight. Locate us in Accra, adjacent Accra Girls Senior High School. Call us on 0204-528900 or 0244-707859. Remember to preface with +233 if calling from outside Ghana. Email us on info@betterlogistics.com. Our other offices are at number 18 and 20 Linus Building, Community 4, Tema. Second floor, Ghana Commercial Bank Building, Harbour Street, Takoradi. Betlaw, experts in shipping logistics.
Welcome to Ingaba Biotech, Africa's genomics company. Established in 2002 in Pretoria, South Africa, Ingaba Biotech is a rare and unique company, as suggested by the name, and we thrive to develop in the year 2000 to speed up the arrival of primates in molecular labs in the country. Dr. Oliver Price, co-founder and executive director, together with the venture team of 5, secured a loan from the Swiss government and got rights to be the very first company to synthesize primers locally, and thus it all began. With capacity to synthesize over 1,000 primers a day, Ingaba remains the only company that does this in Africa. This is made possible by the Mermaid 119E. Using an ABI 3500 exome, we offer DNA sequencing from various templates, and we offer primer design, PCR amplification, cloning of PCR products, fungal and bacterial identification, and much more. In 2007, we launched Next Generation Sequencing Services, which provides NGS projects design inputs, quality control library preparation, and sequencing workflow using either MySeq, NextSeq, or the PacBio systems. We have more services than international brands, which includes New England Biolabs, Zymo responsive technical team with expert knowledge in the services we provide. We also have a well-trained engineering staff making sure that the installation and servicing of instruments purchased at Ingaba is well taken care of. A fleet of vehicles commissioned for local trips and deliveries assures we arrive at your lab on time. In the past 18 years, we have started subsidiaries in East and West Africa, and we have offices in Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, Tanzania, Senegal, and still maintain a strong presence in our neighboring countries. All this is achieved with a highly trained and professional team that is always ready to assist. Welcome to Ingaba Biotech.
Service and values for our immediate community by providing quality and sustainable laboratory solutions, supply installation and maintenance of medical lab equipment, reagents and consumables, affordable products and services, after-sales support and extended warranty obligations, support laboratories in the areas of clinical chemistry, hematology, histopathology, immunohistochemistry, blood banking, molecular pathology, immunology and microbiology, among others. As a result of strong partnerships with world-acclaimed manufacturers of laboratory products, DCL has been able to help enhance quality healthcare, increase handling and logistic efficiencies, and rise to becoming the Laboratory Supply Company of the Year across Nigeria in the last 5 years, and in the subsistent year across the entire West Africa. It's been a highly rewarding 15 years with you.
The world is now a global village, so is transporting your goods across the world made easy movement of air and ocean freight worldwide, as well as business, government institutions, non-governmental organizations, and individuals. Call on us. We are experts in freight forwarding, air, sea, and road, custom clearing and forwarding, cold chain logistics management, and anything freight. Locate us in Accra, adjacent Accra Girls Senior High School. Call us on 0204 528900 or 0244 707859. Remember to preface with +233 if calling from outside Ghana. Email us on info@betterlogistics.com. Our other offices are at number 18 and 20 Linus Building, Community 4, Tema, 2nd floor, Ghana Commercial Bank.
Is a rare and unique company. It's developed in the year 2000 to speed up their team of 5, secured a loan from Swisscom. With capacity to synthesize over 1,000 primers a day, using an ABI 3500 exome, we offer DNA sequence identification and much more. In 2007, we launched using either MySec, NextSec, or the Pack BioSec. Bioinformatics labs, which in Charlotte, just to name a few. Engineering staff making sure that the installation and service assures we arrive at your lab on time. Here, Ghana, Tanzania, or team that is always
market, providing unparalleled customer service and values equipment, reagents and consumables, affordable products and services, after-sales support, and extended warranty obligations. Support laboratories in the areas of clinical chemistry, hematology, histopathology, immunohistochemistry, blood banking, molecular pathology, immunology, and microbiology, among others. As a result of strong partnerships with world-acclaimed manufacturers.
Once again, it looks like I'm going to have to start talking as a catalyst for people to fill the room. I hope everyone enjoyed lunch. It seems like we just started and we're already at the last section for the day, which means we must be having. We're now at what has become a staple of the conference, which is panel discussion, and effectively translating research findings to policy. And I put in brackets and products and impact. So from findings to policy to impact. And the moderator for this panel discussion, before I even read the moderator, the aim of this panel is basically to outline the steps, the processes, the attitudes that need to be in place for you to be able to effectively translate what we're doing in the lab to policy, to startups, and ultimately to impact, right? And the key slant is that we want to focus on solutions, not the problems. There'll be some brief discussion on the problems, but a lot of times the problems, we already know them. So we want to focus on solutions because people have done it, companies have done it, governments managed to do it despite the challenges. So what are the positive actions that lead to a net positive impact? So our moderator is going to be Dr. Lily Pemka, who is one of our faculty. She holds BSc and MPhil degrees from the University of Ghana and doctoral and postdoctoral training in human genetics from the University of Iowa. And in addition to being a faculty member in the Department of Biochemistry, Cell and Molecular Biology, she's also faculty at the WACCBIP, and she's the head of the scientific core at West African Genetic Medicine Center, WACMEC. Another ACE WACCBIP research fellow, Bediako. Get us going.
Peter, can you all hear me? All right. So I'll start with, so Dr. Ngozi Irondu is a trained in strengthening disease surveillance and health systems and improving data for resource allocation decision-making in low Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia, and the UK government all-party parliamentary group on global health. Dr. Irondu champions shifting power in youth, Lancet Commission on Racism and Structural Discrimination and Global Health. Dr. Ron, he holds a BSc and MBCHB in governance from the University of Ghana and a PhD in epidemiology from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Dr. Odro is currently the director of the Research and Development Division of the Ghana, seeing the functioning of the various departments and centers and the following. Technologist to eventually head it as deputy director within the Ghana Health Service. Multiple clinical. He will also discuss the recently released Ghana Research Plan and how it will aid in translational research in the short to medium term. Dr. Odro, please take yours. Who holds a BSc in biochemistry from the University of Ghana, I guess this department, right? And an MSc in environment and human health from the University of Exeter for Ghana for the research and innovation economic to aid the delivery of the Reasearch program across the portfolio of funded research and innovation projects in Ghana. Is it Risa or Risa? Risa. Okay. This includes the grant management, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation aspects of RISA-funded projects. He's on the panel to explain how this knowledge translation works on the ground in Ghana and from a donor's or funder's viewpoint. Please take your seat. You're welcome to the discussion.
Hello?
Thank goodness. So before we start, you know when students take an exam, right? They do this thing we call post-mortem. I know Peter used to do it. Question 5. And everybody says, oh, it's 10, it's 10, it's 10. And then you think back and so you wrote down pipette. So this is a gross digression from the question. And so before we start, I want us to be on the same page. So I'd want one of the panelists to just explain very briefly what the topic means. Effectively translating research findings to policy and product. You want to take that?
Yeah? Hello? Okay, cool. It's a very funny example. But I do think it's important for us to be on the same page. I mean, you know, I think all of us here in academia, and a lot of time, you're curious about things, and so you're looking. Research translation is really coming against that and saying, no, we're doing understanding infectious pathogens or trying to and approaches to the work that they're doing.
On the same page. All right, so now drawing on your individual backgrounds, and it's quite varied. That's why I have all three of you here, and perhaps with some practical examples. What does effective research?
Research translation, how does it look like? I'll start basically saying that it's not all research is technical that must get to policy. That must necessarily, so we need to just get that understanding. It depends on the type of research, it depends on type of discipline, from where I'm coming from. To be able to, you must look from the end from the beginning. That this thing that I'm doing, how is it going to get to the average person on the street, or how people utilize it? So that means that you need to engage all the important stakeholders who you are likely to come across from whatever study you are doing to the end of the policy. So if everybody is involved, then it makes it more easier and more effective. If you take, like saying that we should give practical example, for us, if I'm in the health background, so if you take for applied health research in particular, before we do any study, we might have done all the formative studies. We've done all the formative feasibility, accessibility, to make sure that the work we are doing really will get to the end of it. We get involved, those policy people are involved, they are part of the team. We get all the program people involved, they are part of the team. We have to get the partners to be involved, they are part of the team. Because it's not just doing the research itself. Actually, even after we finish the study, the translation, the implementations, research, they all involves money. There are many times you see people finish the research, then they can't do the implementation part of it. So the partner, the sponsors, they all must be part of it. So for effective research translation, it means that it must start from conception and all partners in the pathway be involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any examples of
anything that...
If you take, like he said, I'm from Navongo Research Center. Like I said, if you currently, let me give a new study we want to, maybe probably that will be more current. We are seeking to combine two dewormers, right? We are seeking to combine two dewormers. They are individual drugs. So we want them to combine them and then hoping that one day we have adopted as a policy because we want. So what do we do first? First, we need to go to a community to find from the people that these two drugs you are taking, we want to combine them, become one drug. So we have to do the formative study and find from the people whether when the drugs are combined, they will take. And whether having one single dose compared to two doses will be easier for them. That's what we did. We currently, for those who are aware, something like maternal health book. Before, we didn't have a book that encompasses the child's information, the mother's information. So with the support of JICA, we wanted to do a study. So we needed to go back, the same formative study. We need to go back to those who are likely to use those products, discuss with them what we intend to do. So the mothers who agree, we need to talk to the program like the family health, which is the final program, which will use it. We discuss with them. They become part of the study before we did the research. So by the time the study is finishing, it's actually all those who are likely to help us to bring it to policy, they are aware of it. Because it's not like you finish, because the people who take the findings to policy, either they don't have time to read what we have done, or they don't have, so that's what we do. So, and then even when we finish and we are disseminating, we make sure that probably we bring the director as the chair of that particular program, so he gets to know what we are doing. So basically, these are some of the two issues that we do. Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you. Mr. Jao.
One word, when we are talking about effective research translation, which is priorities, what is it that drives the research in the first place? Of course, we have curiosity-driven research, which is premised on understanding certain phenomena that are taking place, but then a lot of the applied research, the goal often is to solve a certain problem. And this problem could be at the individual level, at the community level, at the national level, or even at the global level. So to be able to say that research is being effectively translated, it means that have we been able to convey that knowledge that we've created through research to outcomes that actually create impact. So we can talk about goods and services that would come out from the research. And in this case, we are also talking about policy making. What kinds of policy will be outputs of the research? And depending on the level you are looking at, you may be interested in looking at certain indicators that would give you that notion of success, you know. So for example, if you are talking about the community level and maybe people need safe access to water, at the end of the day, have you been able to make that happen? So that is where we can say that there's effective research translation. If it's at the national level, the countries have their development plans, they have their strategies. How is research contributing to attainment of those strategies? And then if you are talking about the global level, thankfully we have something like the Sustainable Development Goal to help us, to serve as indices. So how far is scientific knowledge helping us to achieve those goals? To make it a little bit more practical, in the context of the Reasearch Fund, for example, we work with one of our partners is the University of Ghana Business School, and they are collaborating with different research units in the university. For example, the Drink Consortium, Dairy Research Consortium, whereby they've selected a number of innovations, food processing technologies and processes from the University of Ghana that they are using to train rural entrepreneurs to be able to improve how they process food products. So this will lead to new food products, and these food products will be safer, the quality that they will, of their production will be higher. You know. So if you're able to achieve this, then you can
Develop.
So for example, we are seeing rural entrepreneurs who work in the poultry value chain, for example, convert eggs into a powdery form, so that allows them to have a...
I think
Or what should it even look like in case you don't have?
a lot of the research that I would do was very operational, and so it could be like some talking about what that research would do and helping them to understand, so transferring. So I think that policy engagement is one entry point into effective research, but from the very beginning, so they become kind of champions for the work. So if it was research done in the community, going back to the community and talking about your findings and ensuring that they're aware of that too, because then you're also supporting or helping to create a bit of a demand at the community level. So if you have just worked on, introducing, let me think, well, say that you're looking at like vitamin A supplementation with trying to put that alongside immunization activities in a place that it hadn't been done already, and you're explaining to the mothers as well as the clinicians why this makes sense to do this all together and like what are the health impacts of that. And that's just a research study. And say you leave and they're saying, but, we were told that this is really important. Why is this not? Or why can't we have this as a mainstay? So that way, the community is demanding it as well as the politicians understanding. Well, this is important, and so on both ends, you're able to increase the chances of it actually being something that functions and that can go forward. Yeah.
Thanks. So, Dr. Dro, you mentioned something about engaging stakeholders. So I want to delve into that a little bit. Who are these stakeholders when you start research? So I know some of us are guilty of this. When you write a proposal, you're probably more interested in the basic science, right? But to get funding, you have to that point and inform anything. So I just want to know, when do you engage the stakeholders who are going to help you implement, or help you translate your findings? When do you engage them? Because I know some of us are guilty of this. We've not really engaged anyone. We are just interested in figuring out why this mutation is causing this disease. And although in the proposal, we've mentioned that we're going to inform policy, but we've not really engaged anyone. So at which stage do you engage, stakeholders? Does it help you even shape, your projects? What's your take on that?
I said earlier on, it's quite difficult. Stakeholders for us is the community where we work, really. If you are talking about it, those are the media people we engage. But if you are talking about the science, then obviously first is your peers, either in the university, the policy people in the ministry. Those are the people you want to engage. And in Ghana and most of our world too, it's also important for our partners and the donors. At the end of the day, if the truth of, and in Ghana particular or in other, even WHO, because the truth is that if you want to change a policy, and WHO, for example, does not endorse it, for health, it will be quite difficult too. So it's different levels, the community and people around, the health systems around the community level, the national level, we need to engage them, depending where the funding is coming, and in most cases to academia, actually more scientific in-depth into all this. So these are all the people we engage. But for policy in particular, the end user is important, and also the one who is supposed to implement it. And the ministry and the Ghana Health Service in particular is always very important. So what we have done, it's more of always been a partnership, right? Because this day one person doesn't do research. So if they are part of it, probably even by part of the investigating team, such a way that they understand what we are doing from the beginning. They know the challenges we will have when we finally want to implement the study. And then we can all together put things together and work. So basically, these are the many types and different levels of engagement and stakeholders we always deal with.
Okay. So I guess based on your expertise that you have, all three of you, I consider you all stakeholders, right, that we could engage. So in helping translation of scientific research into policy or products, and product development in Africa, what specific roles do you play in your field? So we can start. Yeah, what roles do you play?
So I'll talk about what role I play now. So right now I work at the Global Institute for Disease Elimination, and the purpose of, a lot of the work that we do is to catalyze science and work towards elimination. So, right now I'm working on something that we call innovative finance for neglected tropical diseases, and like in the name, they're neglected. So there's quite a bit, there's not as much of an incentive to develop products or new treatments or new diagnostics for some of these diseases. And we're trying to convene funders as well as product development partners, NGOs, and really try to fill the gaps in some of these places. And so I think, coming here, and I was telling Dr. Kwashi that a lot of the science that you guys are talking about, because I'm not a geneticist, I'm not a molecular biologist, is very beyond my understanding, but it's still good for me to be here, right? To understand like the cutting edge work, to understand what are we getting closer to, what do we still have a lot of questions about. And so when I'm going back and like trying to inform funding or new studies, or looking at which new studies we can look at, then I can say, well, I just come back from a conference. I know there's quite a lot of work being done here. Maybe we can look at this, right? And so I think that even inviting people like me to your conference that are not within your field is a way of engaging stakeholders, because I'm getting a lot more information just from being here.
Well, consider yourself engaged.
Okay. Let's check one.
So, Mr. Jahal.
So the Visa Fund or the Riser Fund, even on our team, we say it differently, so don't worry. So it's an acronym for Research and Innovation Systems for Africa. And as was explained already in the introduction, is aimed at contributing to ecosystem strengthening as far as research and innovation ecosystems are concerned. What we want to do is to drive sustainable development by bringing this to communities, as was already mentioned. So in the way in which we work, we identify some country priorities. We have 5 country priorities for Ghana, and I think that 3 of these priorities are relevant to this conversation. One is enhancing coordination and duplication. So we are supporting projects that will bring stakeholders from different sectors together: government, academia, industry. So for example, one of our awardees called Heritage Labs, they organized a program called the Ghana STARS Commercialization Roundtable. So STARS is an acronym for Science, Technology, Innovation, Research, and Sustainability. And in organizing this roundtable, they brought together people from CSIR and WACCBIP as well, people from industry, Association of Ghana Industry, the Private Enterprise Foundation, and also people from the government. Here we are talking about, for example, the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology, and Innovation, and other government agencies, to really look at the subject matter of research to commercialization. How can we go about it? I know that we are not here to be talking about problems and barriers, but in those meetings, those barriers emerge, and so we commit ourselves to, okay, our next line of action as far as policy is concerned. For example, MEST set up an agency, they set up, what I would call at this stage a program called the Ghana Innovation in the Research and Innovation Ecosystem. So now, one of our key priorities now is how do we support the center to have a legal backing to kickstart its operation. They have already formulated a plan, a master plan, under the Decade of Innovation program for the government, where partnerships are very important to drive the big pieces that will then affect activity on the ground. And sometimes some of these processes take a long time, and people are often dismissive of what actions you can take, but from a long-term perspective, getting some of these structures right will support the country. Products and services. So how exactly do we do that? Both in the context of enabling policy that would, for current environment. One of the projects that we support from Accra Technical University is looking at how do we use a methodology such as design thinking to build and to craft these innovations they want to create. They have to go into communities to to engage with stakeholders, get their input before building their prototypes, solutions, or at least prototypes that can then further be developed. The creation of enabling policies at the government level, and also enabling stakeholders to come together, to work together, to collaborate, to break some of these silos, like some of the most effective ways.
Your specific role in this space.
You see, in Ghana in particular, in Ghana Health Service, so basically, apart from the local engagement that we have said before, our division basically coordinate all the studies that happen in the service. Obviously, we are limited. We can't coordinate that one in the university, those that are not under Amanda. But every study that has been done in the service, we coordinate that. And then in addition, every year, this year, hopefully in the first week of September, every year we organize a national dissemination, health dissemination forum. I'm sure some of you might have been there before, where we allow all studies that have been done to be presented. And one of the strategies is that most of the teams are headed by the various program heads. So if you are talking malaria, you probably malaria program manager, so she's there to be part of it. So after that, we document it, we have policy briefs, and then we'll be able to share to other people. But the addition of the studies, that there are some studies that there was a need to also do a lot of implementation. So we still get involved in implementation research. Maybe we have the RTSS vaccine, which is current, we are involved. Many of these studies, the evidence may be clear, but you can't just go straight to policy. So as a division, we are also involved in a lot of implementation with minor other implementation studies, smoothing the findings for it to finally go to policy. So basically, we're involved in the evidence generation itself. We create a platform for the studies to be, other studies to be disseminated. We document all the findings, and we write policy briefs. And any opportunity that we have, whether it's like here or any other fora that we have, we also participate in ensuring that we disseminate those findings. And by so doing, we are building the critical mass of minds that enable us most times to send whatever findings we have into policy. Not forgetting about WHO, right? Because whatever, as a health sector, they are the global coordinator. So everything we do, they are also involved. So basically, that's the role, I would say myself, but the system that I lead in doing.
Thank you. I heard you say, I heard ethics. So could you briefly tell us a little bit of, the ethical issues that you need to address when you have to translate, research findings?
I guess the ethics comes before the study is done. So when there are difficulties in what you are going to do, the ethics study comprises both scientists and lay people. So the expectation is that they are able to tell you where the challenges will be, whether in the first place the study we are doing will be useful in the first place, whether it's ethical to do it, whether it's morally right for it to be given to human beings on those things. So ethics will just play a role in the early stages. But actually in the latter stage of dissemination, translation, ethics may not necessarily play a role. Any consent. So when you go to the field, the people who have difficulty, they will tell you. So ethics basically is always at the early stages of it. Unless along the way, you want to do some implementation studies or some other operational issues, then maybe there will be a need to go back to ethics to look at it. But basically, ethics normally will be at the formative and the early stages of the study. Thanks.
That's a great point. So I'm sure with most every field, but I'm pretty sure Africa in general has its own unique challenges. And I'm wondering if each of you could give me just an example. We wouldn't dwell on it, but an example of a challenge that is peculiar to the African setting.
Just to say, I think it's important to identify issues in order to find a solution. So I think it's very useful to do so. I think that, one thing, and I was thinking about this question, is that, and I think that there are like flavors of this in the other responses, is that some of the existing structures are not very amenable to kind of translating the research into, or translating the research for other stakeholders. So I think in Africa, but also in a lot of, I think, more traditional cultures, it's very hierarchical. So there's hierarchy within the specific sector, so like health sector. So certain, like maybe the people who know the most about a specific issue So the ones that are like maybe in this room right now, they're not the ones that necessarily have access to the people that may need to listen or to learn about it, and the person that they may be giving that information to is not going to be able to it as well as that person could. So I think those existing structures to ensure that you're able to teach and engage with, I think that's one of the, that's a kind of a unique issue.
In the system as far as Africa is concerned, and that is what we are trying to, when it comes to human capacity, you know, we need certain skills to be in the ecosystem, do your research, and oftentimes might not have all the bandwidth to, you know, if these are gaps in the ecosystem, innovation management, that I think is very important to address, that can be worked on. And in doing that, I think that the question of income of people with disabilities, poor people in urban communities, and people in rural areas, they are often excluded from the research and innovation ecosystem. So in building human capacity is the money. Where do you get funding for your research, or how do you get funding to translate that research into research and innovation financing, so to speak, is also another gap in the ecosystem. At MISA, we try to, not in terms of just providing funding for the projects, but we also work with initiatives that are looking at sustainable ways of.
One question that we must ask ourselves that who drives the translation agenda? Is that the researcher or is the end user? Who is it? Because I guess those are some of the key issues that we need to do for our content. Who drives that? Who do that? And also, one key also provides is the lack of coordination. I think there are too many. Yesterday there was issue of somebody asking whether is it a conflict of interest of somebody getting money or people doing research and getting money. I think you have a challenge of actually coordinating the work we do. But yes, it's good that there are many competing interests and different people are doing. But if you take Ghana, for example, we have a common platform. Even the University of Ghana, is there a common platform for research dissemination? And so we have a challenge with the coordination of the study. We have a problem with the common platform for us to disseminate the findings. This is when we are together, we disseminate, then we can reach some consensus and synthesize the findings. That please. So the person who drives the research translation agenda, we need to be clear about whether it's the end user or it's a researcher. I think now we're trying to have a research policy. I'm sure maybe if it comes official, and the common platform for disseminating and synthesizing. Where I'm coming from, almost every day there's meetings. Sometimes the meetings are just, I think the key issue is that, I think there are many researchers, when they draw their budget, they don't put any after fund. It's a problem. By the time they reach that stage, sometimes even publication becomes a problem. Proposals, or we have protocols, and budgeting. I think we must ensure that there's a substantial part of the money. Because that bit is what is lacking, and it's quite expensive. It's quite expensive. So we should be looking at the funding aspect of it, so that you see that many times, if the study is being funded by USAID, it's being funded by COICA, it's funded by JICA, it's funded by WHO, you may end up in policy or something. Because they already plan all the series of things they want to do already. I think I'm talking from the health sector. So USAID spend a lot of money, even after the initial studies, they have to pilot it, do initial studies. So I think the funding is also okay. So and it's not everybody who will be giving you money to do the study and also give you money to translate, or to do implementation. So we need to look at it and always try and put it in our budget, at least for basic dissemination and sometimes publication.
Thank you. I'm pleased that apart from, enumerating the issues that we have, you offer some solutions as well. Dr. Kwashi, so when you're budgeting, put money down for that. Okay, so this is a specific question for you, Dr. Erondu. And what role do you think the global North-South and South-South partnerships can play in driving forward the translation of research findings into impact? First of all, I think we need to know what North-South and South-South partnerships are. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So this terminology is what is widely used, I would say, in like academic literature when speaking about relationships between, I say global North, but in some ways, a lot of the countries are in the global north because, yeah, the global north and it's in the southern hemisphere. So it really has to do with wealth of the country, I think, as well as like influence, dominance. And then the global south is usually low and middle. Not a great term, but it's the terms, those are the terms that we have now. I mean, there's a great paper, I think, in BMJ Global Health that looks at the different ways that we characterize countries. And there's this proposal to say like majority world versus minority world, but I don't think it'll catch on. But anyway, if you think of something, let us know. So yeah, I think this is a great question. I think like when it comes to like South and North relationships, a lot of the global North institutions and universities are really well established. So you know, a lot of folks in the room today from like highly regarded institutions that have been doing scientific exploration and research for a very long time. So there's a lot of like knowledge transfer as well as opportunities to learn from a lot of the experts there. I think it's really good that, you know, there's an exchange between like, you know, studying but also like sharing experiences with like data and actually having people from different countries come and learn about Ghana and learn about like the specific issues that are plaguing Ghanaians and coming together and brainstorming about like solutions to move forward. So I think that exchange is quite rich. I think when it comes to like South-South relationships, so we're thinking about inter-African relationships or Africa and India, Africa and Brazil, there's a lot of similarities between these countries, right? And so I think there's so much that they can learn from each other. I mentioned this yesterday during my talk, is that like even working between English speaking and French speaking, like they're, you know, language really changes the way you think actually. And so you can really come at a situation or a problem very differently just based on the language you speak. And so I think that exchange is very enriching. I also think that because I think, I forgot who said it yesterday, but they were talking about the amount of research output, and I think it was about like 2% that actually comes out of Africa, or when you think about first and last authorship. But also when you think about citations, citations of African authors is quite low. And I think that, you know, I have quite a bit of friends in the quote-unquote global South, so India, Brazil, you know, and they have challenges with this as well. And I don't know if China's supposed to be in the global North or global South, but I think it's considered global South. But they also have a lot of challenges because of the language barrier as well. So we can cite each other. We can, like, I really try to make sure that most of my research, that I really look to see if there are any authors from Africa that are working on it, so that I can really cite them and help bring up their, you know, H-index and also get their work to be more visible. You know, I think that's something that we can do a lot more. And it also shows that we value the work that comes out of India, or value the work that comes out of Botswana as well. But Shea Mbembola, who is he's Nigerian, he lives in Australia, and he's the editor of BMJ Global Health. He talks a lot about, you know, it's really difficult, like when it comes to, I think I might talk about this later, but it comes to journals, a lot of the journals that we are publishing in, their audience, they were intended for a different audience. It's very difficult to have like a global audience for journals sometimes, just based on the criteria. So I think it's also worth, you know, if you think about South-South, also publishing in different folks' journals, right? And having that happen vice versa. So I think there's a lot that South-South relationships can do as well.
Thank you. Dr. Drew. So previously, the Ghana Health Service had a 2015 to 2019 National Health Research Agenda. What were the successes of that plan, and how are we building on that?
The agenda is still just a cycle, you know, in the service and the public service, you always have 5-year cycle. So that's just that we haven't published there. So for us, you know, research agenda helps you to prioritize what we want to do. The research agenda would enable you to focus what we want to do. And the research agenda will enable us to make sure that the findings we have easily get into policy. So the agenda, just to explain a bit how we do it, is basically speak to all people involved in health-related research. I'm sure we currently are reviewing this one. Maybe they might have spoken to WACCBIP about what to do. So we collate all these. It doesn't necessarily mean what the division will do, but all the health sector, we put them together. That enables us to prioritize. Because I guess that we will never be able to do all the studies in a day. So maybe we have to prioritize and see those that are probably policy driven, or demand driven, which are the ones that are currently in need that we need to do. So that's what the agenda was about. And it was quite successful. It enabled us. So we asked all the divisions, we asked all the departments, we asked all the regions to get us what they intend to do. We put them together, we look at the policy landscape, we look at the delivery landscape, and then we prioritize which ones, then so that we can focus there. We even share it with the partners and the donors, so that you know that this is where the service really wants. So that was quite successful. The only thing that we are reviewing is being under review. So it's something that's part of our mandate as a division to really generate agenda for health research within the Ghana SS. So it's not like it's for that. It's there. That you see, maybe you see the new one, which will be updated. It's not, we'll rather be updating it. So just adding the emerging issues, the new issues that are reviewing. I'm sure by the end of the year or so, you would have seen it.
Right? All right. So as a product of biochemistry, I don't know if you still remember I draw the Krebs cycle.
Yeah,
still remember.
I think so. Maybe.
Okay. Let's give a test to everyone in case some of them want to defect like you have. Can you talk briefly about how you went from a BSc in biochemistry to becoming the country technical lead for the RISER program?
I don't know if I've defected. I thought we were all on the same team.
Okay, we'll keep you.
Yeah, I mean, if you combine, I'm trying to remember my biochemistry.
cycle.
The acetyl-CoA and
Don't ask me.
oxaloacetate, you
Ask
get
me.
citrate, and then you go to alpha-ketoglutarate, and then you keep going on and on and on.
He remembers.
I don't remember reading about chemistry books since I left university. But yeah, I mean, this department has been a very big part of my life. I studied here many years ago. Dr. Gbaonyu was one of my lecturers. We learned separation methods and is it insect biochemistry? Yeah, those are the two courses that he took us through. Yeah, so I mean, just to give props up, even before having WACCBIP, I remember we used to have seminars where they brought experts from other universities, also within the University of Ghana, but also people from industry, you know, and all of them, they come to present to us what they do, and so it's kind of helped in our formation and actually helped us to build a lot of critical skills. So going out into the world, even when I was here as a student, I was always interested in that applied side of things. And trust me, I always wanted to be a scientist. I think I thought I was going to do biotechnology. But I was always interested in this topic of the connection between science and society and its impact. So as a GAPSA organizing secretary here, so having left the department, I got trained in tech entrepreneurship, didn't succeed as a tech, to be honest. And so being in that environment, I was always thinking of what can help with the support of the Talent Group Scholarship. Oh, got it. And mind you, I was in the first class. To yourself, being curious, continuing to do this topic of science and society, science communication, parts of our assignments. And also the university plays a very strong focus on career development, which I also took advantage of. So coming back to Ghana, and then I work with teams that are work and innovation. I'm supporting one project that is looking at impact. So it's just kind of developing that translational skills, but allowing yourself to ready to, like, politics will be a very important skill to build. Skills in communication, very important. So that's an important translational skill. And then when it comes to project design and project management, also another critical translational skill, irrespective of what you choose to do with your lives. So I guess, so me coming from a biochemistry that partially caused it in a way.
Oh. So it's not always a straight path. I guess that's exhaust all of it. So I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. And what are the actions that will lead to better implementation or translation of research findings into policy, products, or impact? So,
Actors, like I said, we ourselves are researchers. The actors are the end users in the community. Actors are the policymakers. The actors are the practitioners for those delivery, those who are implementing programs, those who are in charge of policy, those who are managing facilities, those in the communities. Again, the researchers ourselves, our partners, and all those, we are all can see at it. But the key issue, that one of the actions that we probably need is improving the technical and the research capacity of those who are in charge of policy. I guess there's a need, not only in health, in all the other sectors, whether it's education or whatever it is. There's a need for improvement of the technical and research capacity of those people, for them to be able to appreciate what researchers or any findings that we have. It's also important, some of the actions that we need to do is also important that the packaging, I think that's one of the discussions we're having here. How do we package our results and our data and information to those who are supposed to take the decision? We have to find a way of packaging it. After some dissemination for just 1 hour, maybe 2 to 3, they will come. At that time, they will come and listen to that specific area, specific period. If you say they should come the whole day, they will not show up. But we say you should come and take the results to them. But if you give them, you may give them information they don't necessarily read. The discussion on the TV every morning, debating about corruption and things, but they are not debating and talking about research or any important funding from WACCBIP or something. So we should also try and see how we can use techniques to get to policy. So we must make plans for those things. So maybe these are what I can think of for now.
Thank you. I don't know if Dr. Rondo wants to take this, but
Which class is that? The research, research translation class.
Policy class.
policy translation.
Well, I think, everybody knows
Are we
this.
getting anywhere? Are we
getting
getting it?
anywhere?
Yeah.
I think it depends who we are. If it's people in this room, then you have to tell me. I think if it comes to like science, I think we are getting somewhere and like globally, but then I think we have new challenges because of COVID-19 and misinformation and, kind of like the mistrust of experts. So I think we have new challenges that we have to overcome. But I think a lot of the things that we talked about today, like engaging in technology, honestly, just building relationships. I think of some of my earliest relationships in public health, just like after a program or a project, going out with like, some folks that work in the Ministry of Health in Kenya, or like after a conference, like hanging out. And I am actually an introvert. I don't actually like doing those things that much. But I think you just have to do it because the relationships are what matter. Like, people can say like, oh yeah, let's have a meeting, but the meeting's going to be so much easier if you already have a relationship with these people, especially if they're people who are not, again, in your field, speaking exactly how you speak. It's just easier to talk to people when you have a baseline, and I think that's something that everybody in this room can do, building relationships with, of course, your colleagues here, but also people in different sectors. So I think the glass is half full because I think we're all motivated to keep filling it up. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, now. The floor is open for some questions. And the microphones. Lindsay.
Good evening. This is an exciting discussion. My question is just about dissemination of research findings. What do you do when you know that the dissemination?
Good question. Should we take the questions first? Or you? Okay, I'll take two more and then we answer them. You have a question? Look hard. Oh.
Do I have to stand?
I don't know.
Okay, thank you so much for your talk. My question is also on dissemination of research findings, and I would really like to know, how do people receive or manage research findings? Like, say for instance, with nose mask and every other policies that they implemented. But then I feel like antibiotic resistance is something that has been on for a while now, and so many things have been said on how people should try and prevent the misuse and overuse of antibiotics. But if you look at some of the things that we are actually observing in our research, we have realized that most of most of the information that been given to people on antibiotic resistance are not really been taken. Like, people are finding it difficult to actually accept some things. So how do you disseminate information in such a way that people will really understand that what you're actually getting from your study is really, really disheartening, and you really want people to be in your shoes, to actually see it the way you see it, so that we all can fight against this silent pandemic. So thank you.
Thanks, Dosing. All right, who wants to take that?
Thank you for the discussion. My question is, you are saying that research should be policy-driven. Then how do you do that when you have to always do novel research?
Thanks, Mommy. Okay, should we pause a bit and answer 3 questions? Let me add mine. Okay, I will let you. Didier.
Okay, so mine is more, assuming I have, I've done this work. Like, we have, for instance, we have this assay that we want to bring to the market. How do we do that? That's my question.
Are you trying to sell some of your assays?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I guess you take a pause here and then answer. So, okay.
We have a very good assay that we want to bring to the market.
Oh, the European market.
Pardon?
The European market, you said.
Well, to bring to the end user. So, what advice do you have for us from each of
For you. All right, can we?
Yeah, I was just thinking about this notion of go back to the glass being half. It depends on what is in the glass. Maybe the glass is full and it's half full of water, and I don't know, there's air or something. So maybe to try to answer the last question, you have an assay that you want to bring to the market. So who is this assay for, and why would it be important to them? It's kind of like the first question you have to be able to answer. And I think oftentimes you have to think somebody's life, or how much money will the person get. Entirely, that means that that value chain doesn't exist. And so you have to go back to, how do you build that value chain? Who are the stakeholders in the ecosystem? What role do they play? And then work out those, building that relationship and building those value chain. And that's like a high level. And then the better, I think there was a question about how do you get people to adopt a certain behavior change. For example, there was something said about antibiotics.
Yeah, Tosing's question.
Education around antibiotic use. Yeah, so there are tools for that, especially when it comes to science communication. In public health, there's a tool called social and behavior change communication. So that's something you either have to learn yourself, or you, get an expert to work with to be able to develop a plan that will help you frame your communication and education activities to cause that behavior change that you want to see. Again, it comes about by understanding what change the person, the community needs to undertake, and having an understanding of the barriers. So what is preventing people from, achieving the positive behavior you want them to achieve? And then, so making that analysis and understanding what kind of key messages will help them to undertake a behavior change will be some of the things you look at. And again, you have to be very patient. It's not about performing magic. And so you have to kind of go through a whole process of getting people to be informed, and then before they can begin to test something, and then they eventually, change their behavior. Very interesting you ask this question, because in my previous job, I was working at for a digital platform called Just One Giant Lab. We created some program to kind of orient young students on, antimicrobial resistance, and this was like one of the modules that we thought maybe I can share the video with you to have some ideas. Yeah.
Fantastic. And the other questions?
The Ministry of Science and Environment, the center they want to set up, that's so that people like you who have those ideas, they'll be able to link you to the potential market and partners and things to be able to support you. But I guess in the modern world, if you have an asset you want to do and send to the market, you have to make sure that there's a market for it. Isn't that what it is? And whether you are not going to face competition and all those. So these are purely business issues which you need to check and see whether you have competitors and whether your product will survive over time. So I guess that. But for the idea of policy driven, yes, I appreciate it, because for the universities, that's why I said that most times my contribution were tried to be put in certain setting. In fact, the first statement I made there was that what type of research and what type of discipline are you in? For university, we agree that there must be discovery. So there's a hypothesis test. There must be new things. We want to go to new things. So we try. But we also have to know that resources are unlimited. So resources are unlimited. So even as you want to discover, what are you discovering for? Because you must have a target. What are the problems that we have now? Maybe until recently we have a problem with COVID. All resources were geared towards COVID. So if you also want to do discovery, I'm sure you want to do the end point. Where are you just discovering something abstract? You must have where you want to be. And that's probably it. So I appreciate that, yes, people should have a free will. But whether the resources are there for you to do it forever, that one I can't answer. I think he's answered the idea of the antibiotic resistance and all those things. It's important also targeting, because you also need to also target. Who are you talking to? Policy and targeting. Some of this buy it. Huh? If there are no restrictions, the person will go and buy it. So it's why probably they need to give people full doses. They don't need to administer to the drugs to people when it's not confirmed that they have a specific disease and all those. So those are, but behavior change is quite difficult. I'm sure most of us here are still doing the same thing we are talking of. That's why that we may be clinicians or we are even educated people. So it's a challenge, but I think you need to target. Whom are you disseminating to? That's also very important. They can help us. They can bring the policy change, and then hopefully over time we can control that. And stigmatization. Yeah. Stigmatization. Yes, so I guess it's a delicate. You won't come and stand here and probably come and present to everybody. Maybe you want to probably first find a select gang group or some very responsible people and disseminate to them. I'm just using Ghana as an example because you're in Accra. Disseminate to them. Because the idea is that you have obligation to disseminate your findings. Maybe you come to a big forum to come and embarrass a whole group. So my own thinking would be that, yes, you want to, probably to be in their own help, to be good for them to know what is happening. So we need to find a way of talking to a group that are a bit level-headed. When we have challenge, you can always ask the ethics committee. Sometimes they're able also to look at the ethical merit of those issues, and then we go to seek advice. Maybe that's the letter that, I guess there are senior members on the floor who can also help us to advise you how you go about that.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Add about stigmatization and dissemination. Something just happened when I was looking at the poster. I saw this excellent poster, and I'm sure the person's in the room, and it was about mask wearing and how, while the masks are being worn to protect us from COVID, but then we're having so many other bacteria on the mask that are resistant that are affecting us in different ways. And I was like, okay, this is a good study, but there's so many anti-maskers out there, and this is just great for them, and I was just thinking, like, context matters, right? Like, you looked at folks that were wearing the mask multiple days and they weren't supposed to, and it would be interesting to know what's the difference between, like, how much bacteria is laden in masks that are worn properly. And I think, like, whenever you're disseminating information, especially if it's stigmatizing or if it's going to potentially be misunderstood definitely have to add that context. You definitely have to lean on the existing science and say, we know that masks protect us from, and then you talk about your findings. I also think it's really important, we said earlier about like engaging with technology and media. It's important for us for scientists to be on podcasts. It's important for us to have our own podcasts. It's important for us to be on television and really talking about our findings, because everyone is not a scientist and they don't read everything the way that we write it one way. Like I have a brother who just changes everything. It's like, I just read that study and it did not take away what you took away from it. So we need to be the ones that translate it for people as well.
Thank you. So it should be unambiguous. Okay, Dr. Bediako. Who else? Yes.
So I guess I have a comment and then a question.
Sultan. Yeah.
The comment has to do with, I think, Dr. Kwashi's question about I have an assay. I think one thing I would add, and I think it's been sort of alluded to, is we have to ask ourselves, why are we doing it and what is the market? And I find sometimes in our context, we replicate for the sake of replicating. If the assay exists and it's already on the market and it's affordable, there's absolutely no reason for you to make it. If it can be made in China cheaper and imported into Ghana and available accessibly to people, there's absolutely no reason for us to make it locally. Instead, we should be filling gaps that exist locally. So I think we have to be very careful. Yes, we want local production, but local production for the sake of local production is not going to be economically viable, because you cannot compete, honestly, with China in certain areas. So you have to plug those gaps. And I think that is why many economies are facing this. A lot of people here have iPhones. iPhone is what? Designed in California but made in China. There's a reason why Apple makes their iPhones in China. They don't make them in America. But because they own the IP, the revenue from making that iPhone benefits the American economy. So as Ghanaian innovators, as African innovators, how can we, just because we can, we should ask ourselves, what can we make that is a unique contribution to the global market? And that's, I think it was mentioned from the panel that they are not technically, I'm exaggerating, but my frustration as a scientist is our policymakers, especially in Africa, given our political polarization, our policymakers change every 4 or 8 years. So you put a lot of effort working on your Deputy Minister of Health. You finally get him to the point where he understands exactly your priorities. And then an election comes and now he's no longer in office. And you have to start the process all over again with the next candidate. So what is the solution? You know, it doesn't happen as much in other countries because they have very strong civil servants and very strong structures that don't change as much depending on who the politician is. But in our context, everything changes. I mean, you can go to any public office. The moment the new government comes in, they change everybody. I mean, we've seen it at many places. So I'm wondering, what is the solution for where we are right now? How do we engage with...
Thank you.
My question will go to Dr. Odro. And the first thing, I want to know if you are able to quantify the research output by staff of the service. Seeing that the Ghana Health Service sits on a lot of data, I want to find out if you're able to quantify the research output. For example, we come here and there, WACCBIP is like, within a year, we've published so and so number of papers, we've done this, we've done that. There again, I want to also know if there are probably research officers who can coordinate some of these research activities in your service. If there are not, I'm sure it could be a policy directive so that it can take some of the graduates coming from this kind of training. Then the last aspect, we have various IRB relationship, or do you have any kind of relationship such that you pay for IRB or, to maybe Noguchi or EC facility? Is there any relationship such that it can be reviewed by one IRB, that you don't have to go and pay the same a higher amount to a Ghana Health Service IRB?
Thank you.
Okay, so good evening. So my question is largely similar to Dr. Bediako's question, but since I wrote it down, I'll just still repeat it. Also add broader context to it as well. So politics ideally is supposed to be the thing that enables policy, especially relating to science and innovation. but especially for our parts of the world, it usually tends to be a hindrance. Like Dr. Diako said, due to polarization, the short shelf life of problem. I asked this question to someone before, and the person advised that the me scientists then run for office, but I don't know how.
Yes. I guess that Dr. Bidiako and my other colleagues, the minister will change. In a certain Ghanaian context, the ministers will always be changed, sometimes they can even be reshuffled. The chief director, I think the problem has been also with the chief directors. Everywhere in the world, the ministers will always change. It's only peculiar to Ghana. But probably in our case, the chief directors were probably, and even the public service, the chief directors may not necessarily be technical person, because the chief director and minister of health may not necessarily be a health professional. But I guess there are technical directors in the various things. So these are the ones who are relatively stable. If you take Ghana Health Service, take Ministry of Education, because I guess that's the reason why they have the service, like Ghana Health Service. No, we are relatively stable compared to even the ministry. Normally don't have a lot of technical people. And then we have the Ghana Education Service. I think that now we have the GTech and all those. Those structures are relatively a bit more stable. So I hope that, and most of the time, the ministers really talk to them, because I doubt that the Minister of Health will do anything without speaking to the Director General of Ghana Health Service. So these are the kinds maybe you can approach. But like the others saying, the politicians who have the purse, they have the money. They are the movers and the shakers. So even if we have to, unless it's a donor funding, if it's from the GOG funds, they work. So we have to do with it. But in my own opinion, maybe in the long term, if you're having maybe pseudo-permanent, I don't know the Kenyan model, whether it's permanent secretary. Some countries have something they call permanent secretaries. So if the chief directors were technical people and they are more permanent, then things will not change rapidly, because the minister will come and find them. But in Ghana here, immediately the new minister comes, he also asks the chief director to be changed. So that's where the challenge is. So I guess as we are speaking, and I'm sure one day when you have the opportunity on TV, you raise it and then they will hear it. So,
Dr. Widiak.
So let me hope that maybe one day we'll get there. I think we are. But the service, Ghana Education Service, Ministry of Ghana Health Service, the service are a bit more stable compared to the ministries. So I'll look at that. The research output, is that what you said? The research output of the research centers and the division is on par. If you look at research ranking in this country, I'm sure the best 6 to 7 cited people have coming from the research centers. It's not only the current people. You can look at Binka, you can look at Japan, like Rita and myself. So the output of that division is very on par, particularly from our centers, and coding. It's very, very good. So we're doing a lot of jobs. But there's still, like you said, a lot of data. The data is open. It's a public, most of the data in the service is open for public to use, for students to use. I know you have used a lot of Ghana Health Service data from the DEMS. Just that you need to seek permission to get the data, and then you need to get ethics approval. So in terms of the output, I can't quantify it and say that it's 50%, 70%, but there's no doubt. Even in this your university, if you take where the field that I know very well, if you go to School of Public, I'm sure you can count about 6 or 7 professors. They are all output of this research division or centers. They are all there. I'll mention their name. Maybe your director knows it. Even one is here. I'm sure we trained one PhD. I'll mention his name. It's in WACCBIP. So they are all, we can count them as all output. So the output is, there's no debate about that. And we are still doing more, we're training more. We hope that WACCBIP is also coming and do more. The IRB duplication is a challenge. And I think it's not only in Ghana, in a lot of places. First, in Ghana, the ethics is not governed by, there's no law that regulates the ethics. I'm sure in the law, in not too distant future, there will be a law that will put all the ethics in the good framework. So it means that everybody can set up his own ethics review committee and then do whatever they want to do. But I've always said that most of the problem are actually coming from the investigators. Because Ghana Service is saying that if you want to work in our facility, just obtain ethics approval. And even now we have said that if you want to work in our facilities, we need to get collaboration from a research division, because we are not very sure what we are going to do there. But so if you are coming to work there and you think your institution doesn't need, you are not working in an institution, you want to go away from your institution, that is yours. But normally the teaching hospital will not also agree. In Ghana every day we have about 6 teaching hospitals. Each one of them will say, come there. Yeah. I guess there's a bit of misunderstanding. If the person is not having investigator, you're only coming to interview somebody in your hospital. You don't necessarily need to come and pick ethics approval or something. So maybe I'm hoping that in the coming months, we could have a common platform where we can all be talking. and see how best. So that at least if you get approval from Noguchi, which is a university, maybe you don't have approval from UHAS. At least for that one, you should be able to work. In our setting, we are saying that if you want to work across the country, you don't need to go and pick approval from, say, Navrongo or Kintampo before. But if you want to work in that locality, like in Kasana and Kana or Apais, if you pick from Navrongo, we don't have a problem. You may not necessarily need to come, except when it's on clinical trials. Because some of the IRBs and ethics committees are also not competent enough. They don't get a lot of proposals. So they just exist by name. Some of them exist by, so there are some sponsors, if you submit that your proposal was reviewed by this particular ethics committee, sometimes they will ask you to go to Ghana Health Service Committee. Ours is somehow default to the National Ethics Committee, because we are by law the implementing agency of the Ministry of Health. So I guess that's what I want to say. But I'm hoping that a time will come as a researcher myself, and having some of the challenges you are facing. Sometimes I go to Kolebu, they say, come and take ethics. Konfanachi will say, Tamale will say, the teaching hospital will do that. I haven't seen Noguchi insisting on that, but I get they also do that. Okay, so I guess it has come up. We all need to come for a common platform and see how they can. Is the chairperson, so that the opinions are independent from we who are the facilitators. So the chairpersons who must come to a compromise and say that Ghana Health Service Committee, if they review and give you approval, Noguchi will accept it. I know that when I was in Gambia, for example, when it's done in Gambia, MRC Gambia, London School, they agree. You don't need to go and do that. I guess or vice versa. So the chairperson will have to, one day have to meet, and I agree that if you do it in Noguchi, it's okay. Then maybe you can move there. So we will have to facilitate that and see how best we can get there.
All right, thank you very much. I think we are almost out of time. And I'll give each of you 1 minute to give us your any last statements. If there are any gaps you think we didn't fill during the discourse, this will be a time for you to share with us. Thank you.
I just want to say that it's been a very interesting conversation, and thank you for all your questions and inputs. And I think Yao's question about IP just brings home another valuable point, which is the issue of scale. You know, whatever it is that you are doing now, how can you scale it for it to become bigger and better? And I think that's also something that is worth considering, especially for the business-minded people here. The final point I would like to share is that I think it's also, aside all the conversations we are having about policy, creating product, services, it's very important that science and technology, we are able to mainstream it. You know, the cultural aspect of it is also very important, because I think that is what will make it become, I don't know, as important as the weather. I think if you take health, for example, because health has to do with our survival, is like one of the easier entry points. But we have to make it a cultural issue, and we have to make it a political issue, not from necessarily from NDC, MPP point of view, but maybe if you are voting in, I don't know how many years' time, your science and innovation policy should be very tight, otherwise you probably not win the election. And I think that it's up to us, it's up to all of us to make science cool and get it to be a talking point, and to get everybody involved in one way or the other. And I think it will go a long way in driving some of the changes that we want to see in our society, from policy to other areas of impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Having me on the panel. I think this has been really interesting and insightful. I think what I would leave with is, you know, everybody in here is part of civil society, and, you know, civil society, we're also constituents, right? And so constituents are always there. So however many times the political parties change, like, we'll always be here. And so I think it's really important that, you know, thinking about how to create communities of, I would say communities of practice, or communities of advocacy around the issues that you're really passionate about. You know, I heard a lot about antimicrobial resistance, not just in this room, but earlier as well. And I just think that is, obviously it's a very important issue everywhere, but especially in Africa. And I think that, you know, if you want to address the issue with antimicrobial resistance, and it's not just about, and you don't want to just talk to other scientists, then it's important to engage with the community and to create that community of advocacy that will outlast politicians. And so the more that you speak to people, the more that you help people understand what's going on, and the more that you exchange with different industries and talk about, okay, like this is what we need to do, then you'll have your agenda that, you know, eventually the politicians will come to you because you'll have that type of kind of power and just motivation, or not motivation, I can't think of the word that I'm thinking about, but my point is that there's obviously powers in numbers. And so, you know, I think something that we've all been saying on the stage is that it's important to kind of go beyond your comfort zone when it comes to like actually translating research into policy and actually engaging in a way that makes a larger impact than just a scientific one. Even though scientific impact is huge, but if you want to like reach politicians, policymakers, lay people, business people, you have to go beyond yourself and you have to kind of be part of a larger community.
Thank you.
Research environment in our country. And I guess what I want to say is that research can be a win-win for everybody, all the stakeholders involved. But for us as people and as a country, if we want to benefit fully from research, I guess we need to look at the environment again. I know that there's a Center for Scientific and Industrial Research. I guess they have the law to regulate research. But as it is now, I think the issue of research governance in our country, both in the health and other sectors, I guess is a challenge. So we need to, all of us need to come together and see how we can make sure that the research governance is improved in our environment. We need to also look at the priority setting and the agenda. I know that everybody should have the freedom to do, but if you are just doing anything, you may not necessarily benefit. So the governance, agenda setting, and also the policy framework. I guess that, like I said, they all will form within the policy. Because if you look around like this ethics issue that has come up, you know, there are no direct research policy that is guiding almost all the research aspects or components of research in our country. So we should all be looking at. And I've seen once that one is done, naturally translating research to policy would also become more easier. But as it is now, I think there are a lot of gaps somewhere in which we all need to look at it, think together, and lobby to have it resolved. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So Dr. Kwashi might need a Chinese partner for his products. But anyway, it's been an absolutely fantastic discussion. And Dr. Odro, Mr. Jao, and Dr. Randu, it was an absolute pleasure having you here. And thanks for contributing to this topic.
So I think let's give everyone another round of applause. So I feel like I need to do a redirect. The point of that question was actually to get those answers, that sometimes one of the reasons why we do these sort of panel discussions, a lot of times our researchers, our students, ourselves, we have this idea in mind that if only I can do this, then I can market it and make a lot of money. But when you have a panel like this, you have different viewpoints, and you actually have that articulation of what you actually need to do and what you actually need to think about, and to step out of your ivory tower, so to speak. Then we can start the dialogue. And this is one of those instances where we can actually see how different viewpoints or different people in the different steps of the whole ecosystem approach the same questions and the same issues. So I really want to thank the three panelists who came. I thought that, they were all chosen for their unique viewpoint, and I think this has been very successful. And of course, our fabulous Lily Pemka did it justice. So this was the last event of the day. I'll hand over to Lydia to basically close us and give us housekeeping items and stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. So today we close early, which is nice. You get to rest and build up your energy for tomorrow night's dinner. Now, so a few housekeeping things. Well, actually, before housekeeping, I'm really excited about the way this panel discussion has gone, because tomorrow there'll be a really interesting plenary that you shouldn't miss. The one who will be delivering the talk was actually a former student of ours who's gone on to establish a company called WACCBIP. I don't want to take the wind out of his sails, but it's something that you shouldn't miss. They are essentially turning waste from animals into products which are being used by farmers to feed, and yeah. So let me pause there. Now, there are a couple of people who want to go to Lodgia. There is going to be a bus in the front of WACCBIP that will take you to Lodgia right after I say leave the room. And there are a couple of people who want to go back to the hotel at Mensvik. There'll be a bus in the front of the biochemistry department. So please, both buses will be here. Okay, so both buses are going to be in front of WACCBIP. And there are ushers who will tell you which one to sit in, right? Super. Please, tomorrow we have 2 excellent keynote presentations. Please don't be late. Be here on time, especially after the breaks. And let's hurry up and get to the dinner quicker. Thank you so much for today.